So today we are talking about the subtle body. We're continuing our subtle body series, but I want to talk specifically about journaling and how that can affect our subtle body. Journaling, I don't know if I'm biased because I'm a writer. Somebody gave me a little blank notebook when I was like 10 or 11 years old. Gave one to me and my sister, and I filled mine up right away. And then my sister didn't use hers, so she gave me hers, and I filled that one up. So I've been writing since then, and I've found it's just this wonderful way to process not only thoughts and experiences, but actually energy that comes through us. And we've talked about how our subtle body is a type of sense organ, where when we walk into a room, we feel the energy of the room. When we think about traveling someplace, we feel that place even before we get there. When we go through an experience, good or bad, there's an energy quality to it. And if it's a powerful experience, it gets stored within our being. There's a great book that talks about this from more of a mental, physical standpoint called The Body Keeps the Score. And that's a really great book if you've ever experienced any kind of trauma, or if you know people that have gone through trauma. It's a really wonderful book that kind of frames it in a way that's helpful, I found, for looking at how our muscles and our nervous system holds on to that experience. Now the same thing happens but with our subtle body, and it can be a little trickier to identify it because it's non-physical, it's energetic, it's in motion. It's happening in what we call the second attention. We have this very physical first attention where, we can line up our silverware in the drawer, we can have our desk all arranged perfectly, have our closet all cleaned out, and then still feel like there's something holding on. And that's because there's something in our subtle body that is weighing on us. So one of the ways that we can start to unpack these more subtle patterns is through writing, is through taking a journal. And sometimes we witness the habitual pattern in our mind. We do our mindfulness, we say, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? And we just continually sitting with it throughout the day, and we start to notice patterns. So it's like, oh, this recurring thought keeps appearing, or this certain sensation keeps showing up, and I can't quite identify it. And one way that we can contemplate is to just sit there, write out. I find it helps to keep focused by writing out, like, this thought keeps appearing. You put it on a piece of paper, and then you set your timer for 10 minutes or 30 minutes, and you sit and you use that as your anchor. What is this? And for many people, that's enough. We can just do it all mentally. But there's certain people, like myself, we need something more tactile. We need to allow ourselves to kind of chew on that thing that we're contemplating and kind of come at it sideways. Some people can do this through exercise. Like when I used to be able to exercise, I would try to run. I could never get my breathing right. But just doing that motion allowed me to process a lot of energy. And I didn't have to think about what it was. I just felt different blocks moving through me and falling away. And that worked for a long time. But then when my body started collapsing, I couldn't do that anymore. I tried, but it didn't work so good. But fortunately, I had writing. I always had writing to fall back on. So instead of it just being journaling about really high experiences that I had, which I highly recommend you do anytime you have any kind of spiritual experience, anytime you have a moment where you just feel that ultimate connection, you want to write it down, because that allows you to create an access point through which you can always return to that moment. Just writing it down in as much detail as you possibly can, and then that act of condensing it into words on paper, it creates this wonderful access point. So if you're ever having a low day, everything's going wrong and you're just kind of spinning out, you can pull out your journal of high experiences and flip it open and read, and then boom, you're connected right back into that moment of power. So that's one type of journaling. What I'm talking about today is something people often shy away from because it's painful, because it's hard to look at our shadows. But if we avoid our shadows, we can get really, really good at compartmentalizing and building these little hidden trapdoors within ourselves, these closets, where we just kind of shove anything we don't want to look at and just into the closet. Nope, not gonna look at that. And something else comes up and we're like, I don't want to deal with this. Shove that away. And that works for a long time. We can become very, very powerful. But then we've got this weight, like a big backpack that we're carrying. And sooner or later, because life is the ultimate teacher, right? She will start to poke at it. And you'll run into people and situations and experiences that kind of kick open that closet door, and that stuff spills out. And the problem with waiting until you've become super powerful to deal with it is now you're super powerful. And so when something gnarly comes out, it's highly empowered. You look at it and it's like, rah! And instead of it just being this that was a really annoying experience and I've held on to it for whatever reason, let me explore what the actual attachment is, it turns into this gigantic thing that can blow up friendships, it can blow up your job, it can blow up your entire life if you don't handle it well, because you are so powerful. So I think it's better to get in right away and start looking at the shadows as they appear. You don't have to go hunting for them until later. Like in the beginning, when we're just really establishing ourselves in the practice, they will come up if you pay attention. If you're doing your mindfulness practice, you'll see the habitual patterns arise, you'll feel it. And so that's an opportunity to explore. So if we're going to explore through journaling, we take that same approach where we try to condense down this one thing that keeps reappearing, like one topic. What is it? And then we just take out a blank piece of paper or a blank computer screen, write down at the top what the topic is. Allow yourself to go into that stillness and really focus in, what is this about? How is this working with my energy? How is this working in my life? What is actually happening? And just allow yourself to free write. And as you write, the mind does interesting things, because you might start with one topic and then you resolve it. And you're like, oh, that's what that was about. But wait, there's still something niggling there's still something that feels a little sticky. And then that brings that into it. And you just keep digging and digging. And by putting it into words, it takes the very amorphous energy out of your subtle body and puts it on paper or on a computer screen into words, and now there's a distance. There's something objective that you can look at. And this is where you have to be a little careful, because you don't want to enter into the judgment mode where you decide, how could I think that? How could I see it that way? Or I'm so weak for being affected in that way. If you start to enter into that, then that's another layer to dig through, to look at and say, well, what's causing me to enter into this judgment mode? What is it that I don't want to see? What's really going on here? So this is an exploration of reality, of truth, of that moment. And we start digging and digging and digging. And as you're writing, this inner transformation happens, where these blocks of attention that were formally neatly packaged into your subtle body unpack. And because they're energy, they start to move. And giving yourself this vehicle of writing allows it a very gentle and safe passage out of your being. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't have to carry that around with me anymore. And then next time you're in the vicinity of something that would normally trigger that reaction, that particular space in the closet's empty. And you might notice, you might not. You know, if it's something big, there'll be a memory of like, oh, whenever I, saw a purple car, I would like freak out and have this memory of this horrible experience, and I would like get all tense and tight. But because you processed it, you see a purple car and you're like, oh, what an interesting choice. And it doesn't have that same reaction. And then sometimes we notice and it's like, oh, cool, I don't have to carry that around anymore. Now, when you've been practicing for a really long time, the things that we hold in our subtle physical body closet get more and more subtle. So you can use different prompts to help you kind of dig through. I actually came across this book a couple weeks ago. It's called The Healing Journal, and it's just a book of writing prompts. It's like 100 different writing prompts. The book itself is mostly white space because she intended it for you to actually write in the book, but it's a paperback, so it's hard for me to like write in the book, so I just bought a notebook. I have a notebook and I write the question and the answer. And it's really interesting because they're, I want to say unpleasant questions, but they're really good because they're designed to really dig into your being and your memory and your subtle body to find where these little tiny subtle attachments still are. Like the one I worked on the other day was, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact phrasing, but it was something like, what is something someone said to you that was mean that you're still holding on to? And it took me a long time to like actually think of something, like, because that kind of stuff doesn't bother me anymore. It's like somebody can yell in my face and I'm like, oh, sorry, you're having a bad day. But after digging and digging, I found this one thing that had happened like 25 years ago. It was something my sister said to me. And it was interesting because, I wrote that and I was like, okay, yeah, but I kind of was over that. But why did that come up? What was behind that? And so that like unlocked a whole further cascade of realizations of family dynamic stuff that, I've looked at but didn't really, it was kind of that sideways glance of like, oh yeah, it's it's not how I thought it was, and that's fine. And it's like, well, no, wait, what's the attachment? It's like, oh, because I wanted my family to relate to me in a certain way, and it's like, no, that's not going to happen. So this is the power of writing it out, because I had no idea. Like I said, when I saw that question, I'm like, I don't have an answer to that. But then it's like, oh wait, I actually do. So I want to highly encourage you to write. And when you do this type of journal writing, this type of processing energy of your subtle body through writing, use a separate notebook. Use a notebook that is not for anyone else to ever read, because that will allow you to be honest. If you even have, the slightest inkling that somebody might someday pick this up, you'll censor yourself. You'll start to write something and then you'll hit a wall of like, oh, I don't want to admit this to anybody else, so I'm not gonna write that. And then all of a sudden the closet door is shut and now you're writing about some kind of nonsense that really isn't doing the work. So this is not the happy, bouncy, fun part of the practice, but it's an essential part of the practice. And if you find yourself overly distraught when you do attempt to do this kind of processing, where you start to really contemplate the attachments that are buried within your being, then you need to do some extra work and get more tools. That might include going to a therapist. It might be exploring alternative healing modalities. Don't ever be ashamed to reach out for extra help. I've had several students who've studied psychology, and we've had discussions about how Western psychology is all about putting our psyche back together. There's been some kind of damage or trauma that happened, and our psyche broke apart, and we're not functioning in some way. So Western psychology is really, really good at helping one put their psyche back together so you can become a fully functioning human. It's important, because then when you introduce Buddhism is almost the exact opposite, where we are deconstructing the psyche and we're dissolving all of the structures that hold our concept of self and identity together. Now, if you try to do Buddhism with a fractured psyche, what happens? You become a non-functional human. There can be psychosis, there can be intense denial, there can be, I don't know all the psychological terms for it, but there's disassociation, where you can use the Buddhist practices to get really good at pretending to function, but you're not really. There's this hollowness, from what I understand, where you feel very disconnected instead of connected. So if you're finding that, then you can do simultaneous. You don't have to walk away completely from your Buddhist practice, but you have to do the homework of like, oh wait, there's parts of my psyche that are not functioning. So let me figure out how to integrate those into a solidified identity, and then let me apply the Buddhist practices of systematically and slowly and gently and naturally dissolving those back into pure light. And when we do it that way, then we become more connected. We become more grounded. We become more loving and whole. So this journaling practice can be a very powerful tool. So I highly encourage you to try it, play with it, and remember, it's just for you. It's not to share with anybody else. You might write something absolutely brilliant that someday you might want to share, but don't shoot yourself in the foot by going in with that intent. You know, some people like to read the really sad memoirs, and that can be wonderful material for that kind of book, but if you approach it with that intent, you won't be able to go deep enough. You'll keep hitting a wall. So give yourself permission to go really, really, really deep and allow that energy to kind of break up and move through you. Now, more to caution, or something to be aware of. When we process the energy within our subtle body, the energy starts to move and we can feel exhausted because we just did a lot of work. We just released a whole lot of stuff. So it's very important to replenish. So that what that replenishment looks like is going to be different for everybody. For some people it might be, going and working in the garden and feeling your hands in the dirt, or it might be just sitting next to a tree. It might be looking at photos of flowers. It could be taking a bath, washing, or a shower, letting the water wash through you. For more extroverted people, it might be going out and spending time with friends. So figure out what it is that replenishes you and make sure you build that into your journaling. So if you're gonna say, okay, Saturday afternoon I'm gonna do a bunch of journal writing, then maybe Saturday evening or Sunday you have something in place that is going to lift you back up. That's going to reconnect you as this new being that you are. If we don't do the replenishment, then what happens is we've left a vacuum. So we're just going to suck back in all the stuff that we just released. So make sure you do that. It's just like when we talked about a long time ago about energetically cleaning our subtle body. We can release all the energy into the earth. We have our grounding cord at the base of the spine and the bottoms of the feet, and we can start at the top of the head and push all of the energy we no longer need into the earth. But now we're left with all these pockets, so we need to bring forth pure light into our being to replenish and refill any spots that were left open. So same concept. So let's do some meditation now.
I have a question.
Oh, sure, question.
Wanted to know the name of the book again about journaling.
It's called The Healing Journal, and I had posted it in the Discord. So if you look on the members section of the Discord Discord server, it's on there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
That's
It's,
exactly what I need right now.
oh, perfect.
I
Yeah,
was like,
they're really good questions in there. I'm like, oh, this is good stuff.
thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so let's do some meditation. We have a little bit of time, so this on here. We'll do some zazen music. Oh, we'll do some old zazen. So it's 4 songs. So let's do the navel center, the heart, the third eye, and then for the 4th song, you can do the crown chakra, or if you want to do the 108 lights technique, where you just radiate the light that you have been building in your body out into this world without any extra. It's just pure light that you're giving to illuminate the world without trying to make anything happen, not adding any loving kindness or compassion or any of those wonderful intentions, but just illuminating the world. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. All at once. So again, sit up nice and straight. Do navel center, heart, third eye, and then crown or 108 lights. sure you pull your subtle body back in around you. Solidify and bow in gratitude. Beautiful. So do some journaling. Find those places in your subtle body, your physical body, your mind, that you're holding on, and start to release some of that baggage, those attachments, without judgment. Just allowing everything to release. If you need some prompts, the Healing Journal book, I believe there's a link on my website, turiyadhara.com, under the shop page.